I'm sick, I'm pasty, and I'm grouchy because I'm sick. I have the flu. It stinks. I hate being sick. So I went on Google. I'm like, hey Google, I have all these symptoms. What do I have? And Google told me I might be suffering from a sick building syndrome. Like, what? What the heck is that? A lot of us don't realize that our homes could be making us sick, and a lot of you have a lot of gross things in your house that should be making you sick. By the way, I did go to the doctor. I do have the flu. I'm on meds. I'll recover, but my gosh, am I a baby? I have not been sick in so long. So you don't want to be sick either. So these are important things that you should really pay attention to. If you're buying a house, you don't want to buy somebody else's sick house. And if you're selling your home, you certainly don't want to sell somebody a sick house. And if you're living in a home, you certainly don't want to be sick. All right, let's get into it. It's going to be a good one. If I don't bite your head off. Grouchy. Sick building syndrome really relates to large buildings, small homes, but there's something in that house or in that location that's making you sick. So where we're seeing an increase in this sick building syndrome is in airtight buildings. And we see a lot more of that because they're very energy efficient. So you'll see windows in buildings like apartment complexes or high rises where the windows, they don't open and there's no circulation and the insulation in the property is very, very good. So it keeps the building really tight. There's not a lot of movement, air in the building. And so toxins build up and it becomes a very toxic building. So the only way to remedy that is what's called air exchangers, where they take purified air, bring it into the building, and they help diffuse some of the toxins in the building. So if you are living in an apartment or an airtight building, be mindful of this. You could be living in a very unhealthy environment. You might want to get your air checked. If you're concerned about this and you're sick a lot, you might want to get an air quality inspection done on your property. And if you're purchasing a home like this, definitely get an air quality inspection completed on your home. You want to know if there's any toxins that are building up in that space. The second way your house can become a sick house is by airborne building contaminants. That means there's actually materials in your house that are directly making you sick. This could be things like dust, vapors, gas. Where we see this happening is in older homes where there's asbestos or lead-based paint, and they even have lead-based tile. These things will build up, and if you do have an older home and you are sick, you might want to get these things tested. In fact, I highly recommend that you get your house tested, especially if you have those popcorn ceilings. From my understanding, if you already have them in your wall, it's not a big deal unless you start to disturb them. So please, if you are removing your own popcorn ceilings, make sure you get it tested first, because if it does have asbestos in it, it can be very toxic. Now, some of you are like, oh, I don't have lead-based paint. I don't have asbestos. My house is fine. Well, what you don't realize is even in these newer homes, especially in these newer homes actually, silica, drywall, even formaldehyde is used in some of those building materials. So if the house is locked up and it's not getting the right circulation and the temperature starts to increase and these things are getting more toxic, you could have a problem. So if you are purchasing a home, and even if you're selling a home, it's not a bad idea to get an air quality inspection done just to put your mind at rest. So a lot of this can be remedied by having just the proper ventilation. So if you are living in a home, make sure you're airing out the windows, you're getting the circulation, the good old fresh air in there. You guys remember science class where they were talking about diffusion? Goes from a greater concentration to a lesser concentration. So if something smells, you kind of like open up the windows and it diffuses itself. Same thing here, okay? Not all things like lead-based paint or asbestos can be cured by this, but just the toxins that are everyday toxins building up, obviously, good idea to get the ventilation so we all can breathe better, unlike me today. So another way your house can get sick is by biological contaminants. These are living organisms or byproducts of living organisms that can make you sick, such as pet dandruff or dust mites or bacteria or mold or viruses that enter your home. Now, a lot of these biological contaminants are brought into the house by your lifestyle or your habits, or they can actually be in the building materials themselves. And they start to build up and they get stuck in the ventilation systems, or they're in your humidifiers, and then they're in your draperies, and then you're in the carpet, and it just starts building up and it starts to create a toxic environment. Now, for those of you who live in high humidity environments, you're more prone to this, right? Because that's where the mold and the bacteria, they like to grow. So you want to keep your humidity right around 35 to 40% to mitigate some of the growth of some of these toxins and bacteria and viruses. It's a good idea to purchase an indoor air quality monitor. In fact, I'm going to purchase one this week just to keep an eye on it. But if you are worried or you're sick, it might be something to regulate on a consistent basis. It's not a bad idea. We don't want to be sick. So another way to make your house sick is what's called humidifier fever. It's a true thing. And when I'm showing homes, I'm seeing all these humidifiers out there. So if you are using a humidifier, please listen up. And if you are buying a house with the humidifier already in it, please make sure you get it checked out. Because what will happen is microorganisms will contaminate that humidifier, and that humidifier will then spew out all these toxins. And you'll get flu-like symptoms like I have right now, or you could get respiratory infections, or you could even get asthma. So if you are purchasing a house or if you're using humidifiers, please use an indoor air quality monitor to make sure that your environment is free and clear of any toxins, okay? Really important that you do this. For those of you who watched last week's video, I will link it at the end of this video. It was Mother's Day and my family bought me See's candy and I was overjoyed because I love See's candy. There's not a better candy out there. My very favorite See's candy is the marzipan, and I just love that thing. So this week, I was having a really tough week. Just, you know, when you're sick, everything looks dark and gloomy. But I went into my office after hours because I was sick, so I had to pick up some mail. And there was this box, and I opened the box up. I'm like, I wonder who this is from. And Charles from San Francisco sent me See's candy, and it's all my favorite candy. Marzipan. Oh my gosh, it's almost all gone. Can you see this little guy? This is so stinking good. Charles, you're my favorite. And by the way, Charles is a realtor. Charles, we're gonna start doing deals together. Thank you so much. That was very thoughtful. And for those of you who are getting any benefit out of this video, please subscribe to my channel so I can continue pushing this information out to the world. Thanks so much. Let's get back into it. Now, a lot of you are sick in your homes because you have radon. Radon. Where I live, we don't really have radon, but a lot of you out there do, and you see them in those basements. What the heck is radon? Radon is a naturally occurring radioactive decay of uranium. I know it sounds something like Star Wars, right? It is very common, and you find uranium in rocks and soils, and when it starts to decay, it lets out radon gas. But radon gas is very toxic and unhealthy, very unhealthy. So what do you do about it? So this radon gas actually comes right out from the soils into our homes. And what can you do about it? Well, there's this thing called the active subslab depressurization system. I know, big word for there's like a pipe that goes in and it aerates the slab underneath the slab to release this gas. It runs anywhere from $80 to $100. Seems like a really good fix to me. So really important if you're selling or even if you're purchasing a house to get your house tested for radon, because it can create some health problems and your buyer ain't gonna wanna, you know, inherit somebody else's problem. So it's a relatively easy fix. Well, maybe not easy, but there is some remedies that can be done if you do suffer from this problem. Mold! Mold is another major contaminant in a home that can make us sick. We've all heard horror stories where the house has to be taken down and it has to be completely remedied, and it's a major problem. So if you're purchasing a house, especially if it's a flip, really go back and look at those previous pictures. I can't tell you how many flippers have come in, bought a house that has mold, slapped some paint on there. They don't disclose the fact that there was mold, the bad kind of mold, and it continues to grow because mold needs a source, meaning a food source, to grow. And a lot of these flippers will buy homes that have maybe a slab leak underneath or some type of water, something that's feeding this mold, or it's, you know, the humidity is too high and the mold's just growing like crazy and it can make you sick. So I highly suggest that everyone purchasing a home to get a mold test done. There's always going to be spores in the air, but when they're really high levels, that could be a major problem. So please be mindful of looking for leaks and testing and paying attention to where that water is going, because it really can cause a lot of health risks. Usually most home inspectors will offer this right now because it is such a hot topic. You know, this just came to my mind. If you're buying the house and you're on a hill, you don't want to be the last house on the hill because the water flows down the hill and into your house consistently or down the gutter, right? Everything's going to flow to your house. So if you're buying a house, don't be the last house. Just a little fun tip. Something else that could be making you sick is that sewer line. So please get your sewer line checked. I've been living in my house for 8 years. I haven't checked mine. It's going to be on my to-do list this year. But you don't want to all of a sudden have a major problem and then have the sewer line back into your house and you have all this nasty smell. Like, I would probably have your sewer line inspected at least every 5 years. Obviously, I don't do that, but I do a lot of home inspections with some of my clients. And that's one of the number one things that I really highly suggest that you do perform if you're purchasing a house. And if you're just in your house and you're just maintaining it, not a bad idea to get ahead of that as well. Just knowing, because you can, correct those roots if they don't get too invasive, and you can clear out the line and maintain it much easier than avoiding it and then dealing with a major problem down the road. Okay, I'm grouchy, but termites make me grouchy even when I'm not sick, okay? It is so icky having termites in your house. And just so you know, when the temperature gets higher and it gets warmer outside, which is just about to happen, these termites start coming out of the woodwork, and I mean, literally, and they start dropping all over my house. It's like raining dead, icky termites. It's nasty. The only way I can remedy this situation, spot treatment ain't gonna do it, because when these little, termites start shedding their wings, they lay eggs in the wood, which means these little guys are gonna hatch, and you don't know where to treat them because they're all over your home. And a lot of us have brand new homes and we have termites, and you're like, what the heck? How do I have termites? I have a brand new house. Well, because the lumber was sitting out in the lumber yard and these termites laid their eggs in the wood and now they're in your home. So be mindful. If you're buying a house or if you're maintaining a house, get regular termite inspections at least every other year so you don't have to deal with what I'm dealing with, which is an absolute nightmare. So the only way to remedy my situation is to tent my house, because I have baby eggs all up in my attic and all over the house. I don't want to do it. And I got to move out 3 days with my dog and my kid and my husband with all my food, and I don't have time for that. So I'm going to be raining termites here in a few weeks, and I'm not very happy about it. And not to mention, that termite tent is very toxic and probably not good for the health, but you kind of have to pick your poison. No pun intended. I hate termites. If you have rodents on your property, you more than likely have a huge problem. And now I know most of you are going to be like,
Audra, we all have a little mouse and a little rat. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal.
It's a big deal, because if you see one, they have a buddy and they go breed and they have more baby buddies, and it's a nightmare because they can create a major infestation in your house before you even know it. And I'm not kidding. I remember this one house that I sold 15 years ago. I knew there was this weird smell in the house. I'm like, what is that? Still couldn't pinpoint it. Anyway, we do our home inspection. The home inspector goes in the attic, and there is a massive rat infestation. It was so bad, there's people that had to come out in hazmat suits. And I am not kidding, like hazmat suits with all this air quality stuff that they had to do. They had to replace all the ventilation in the attic. It became a nightmare. The buyer backed out. They're like, no way am I buying somebody else's problem. It cost them $25,000 to fix the problem, when honestly, all they had to do is just manage the rat problem. And there's no way they had no idea that was in place, because you would hear the rats, right? So if you're one of those homeowners that are hearing these rats, make sure you get ahead of it, because you don't want to spend $25,000 plus to eradicate the situation. And by the way, that was 15 years ago pricing, so just imagine how much it would cost now. Now, rats carry lots of diseases. I can't pronounce them, so I'll put them on the screen right here. You want to avoid this, and this can make you sick, and your buyers will not buy your house if your house is infested with rats. No good. So I had a YouTube follower reach out to me this last week. He's considering purchasing a high-rise condo, and he said, hey, do you know anything about roach infestation? And thankfully, I did not, but I did a little bit of research. He did a ton of research, forwarded it on to me, and boy, folks, you do not want to buy a roach-infested home. So make sure you get the proper inspections. Show up in the morning, show up at night, see if you see any roaches. You might even want to talk to neighbors, okay? Neighbors are a really good source of information about any type of infestation. They know, and you don't want to inherit somebody else's problem. And if you are a homeowner, it's a good idea to get ahead of this roach problem, because from what I've read, it can take 2 to 3 years to eradicate the situation, and it costs a whole heck of a lot of money. These roaches carry E. coli, they carry dysentery, salmonella, and apparently if there's a lot of them, they get this really oily, nasty smell that you just can't get rid of. Oh, makes me gag. Oh, okay, look, here's little Ozzy. Ozzy, why have you been asking about Oz? Here, say hi to Ozzy. Oh, the cutest dog. Oh, you're so cute. Now, if you want to avoid a lot of these little critters, I'm telling you, these little dogs can get rid of a lot of these rodents. I don't ever have rodents because she's a little ratter dog. Oh, and she eats roaches, and she doesn't eat termites, so I got to get you to eat termites. Oh, she's so cute. That's little Oz, and she's cute. Love her so much. Okay, so I would be very reluctant to purchase a home that had a hoarder living in it. You just don't know what you're buying because there's so much stuff in the house. So if you are buying a hoarder house, I would make sure that you are contingent on your inspections because you want everything off the property because you don't know what could potentially be in that house that could be toxic. So be careful. I would still don't think I'd ever buy a hoarder's house because you never really know what you're buying till the very last day. And you got all your loans, you're ready to close, you sold your house. It's just not a great idea. Just my opinion. If you're buying a home, understand the location. Like, how far away are you from the freeway? What's the road noise like? How much toxins and icky stuff's coming off the freeway? Like, you kind of need to know the air quality, right? How far away are you from the airport or the dump? Is there new construction going to take place around the corner? Because that could create some environmental hazards. So make sure you know what you're purchasing. And if you're selling your home or if you're a home owner, the best thing you can do to sustain that value is to create the safest home you possibly can. So be mindful of all the things that I shared today, because oftentimes when I'm selling homes, these are the things that are coming up. These are obstacles that are hard to overcome and very expensive to remedy. All right, folks, I'm going to go take a throat lozenge, go to bed, and I'm going to have a better week this week. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. All right, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.